Well, welcome back to the second part of our visit with Valdespino. We began in part one in the famous Machanundo Pago vineyard, and then went into the heart of the bodega, where we looked at the whole process of Solera maturation, of Inocente, Tio Diego, and some of the other related wines that sit across the Solera systems here within this remarkable complex. In part two, we're going to explore even more about the history of Valdespino, and indeed how the winemakers are using that as an inspiration for reimagining some and relaunching new products into the marketplace. We'll also have a further wander around the complex and explore some of the other gems that exist here in this somewhat unlikely setting. So, let's go. These are wines that once dominated the world and made Jerez and the surrounding towns of the Sherry Triangle some of the richest places on earth. So Ignacio, thank you so much for allowing us into one of the inner sanctums of the world of Grupo José Estevez. This is, I think you call the label room, and we will talk in a second about some of the amazing history these different labels represent in the evolution of the business. And I was talking to one of your team just now who told me that secretly all of your research and development is conducted by just looking at these labels and thinking how to reimagine them, which is not a bad thing to do when you have this kind of wealth of riches. Anyway, that's not exactly what we're here to talk about right now. I wanted to start by just going back to a little bit of the history of Valdespino. We heard in some of the introductions that we've made that actually the first mention of Valdespino was in the 13th century, with some of the troubles with the Moors and the allocations of lands and the rest. So I'm not going to go into that right now. I want to bring us a little bit further up to date. I believe Valdespino first registered as a sherry shipper, quite late actually, in 1875. And then the Inocente that we've just been sampling and its cousins through here was 1894, I think, when that first came out. Tell me a little bit about the evolution of Inocente as a brand.
Well, I mean, it's difficult to talk about evolution really, because one of the big assets about this brand, and more precisely about the wine, is that it hasn't really evolved in the way that it's actually been made. Yeah, yeah. And this is pretty much the secret about the success of this brand and this wine. I mean, it's we're trying to be loyal to this traditional way of making finos. Single vineyard, very much the origin, the terroir, the soil, and no doubt, a very strict selection of the grapes in the vines, and of course, cask fermentation, which has been, kept all the way since we started setting up the Solera of this Fino. And of course, extending the aging of this wine very much to an extreme. I mean, Victoria was explaining earlier on, the most commercial Finos are ranging between 3 and 5 years average age in the Solera system. Inocente is close to 11, right? So that makes it, unique. There aren't very many Finos around that are actually, offering that complexity, this fantastic structure and the finesse that we're looking at with Inocente. So yeah, it's we can't really talk about evolution. I think we can actually talk about how this wine has been successful throughout the years, because it's been relying very much on the quality and the care in making this wine.
Yeah, no, and I guess when Valdespino ceased to exist as a separate business in '99, I think, and Grupo José Estevez took it over. Some people might have been concerned, because I think at that point Valdespino had 5 or 6 different bodegas in the center of Jerez. But we know that Soleras are very delicate things, and especially if they've been there for hundreds of years, don't maybe take too easily to being transported to another location. And of course also, Grupo José Estevez is a very big business, one of the biggest private businesses in Spain. Were they going to lavish the same care and attention, or was the brand potentially going to be somewhat diluted in this new environment? Now, I guess we know that wasn't really the case, but perhaps you can explain a little bit about the thinking behind how the Valdespino brand is managed within the group.
Well, since the beginning, since the founder of Grupo José Estevez, who was the lately president of the company, and of course the father of a current CEO, José Ramón Estevez, founded the company back in 1974. They were seeking around for very special brands and batches of wine. And the opportunity of acquiring and purchasing Valdespino came up at the time. And right from the beginning, José Estevez actually understood that this was the gem of a group, right? I mean, and it's been considered such since then. And therefore, we've actually tried very carefully to maintain all these traditions, all this selection, and referring to what you were explaining them, doing that transition and transferring all this soleras to where we are today, that was a hell of a job, Paul. I mean, I can assure you, it took us 3 to 5 years to actually gradually move all these casks from the different scales of wine and from the different brands down to where we are today. So that shows the care and how loyal we've been to the tradition, and we still consider very much Valdespino our gem, the jewel of the crown, and we've been loyal to that original concept on which Valdespino was created since, which is the boutique concept. I mean, we're a boutique sherry house, despite the size of the mother company, Grupo Estevez, but we keep remaining or seen as a boutique house, which is specialized in very small batches of limited, unique rare sherries.
Yeah, well, the Soleras seem quite happy where they currently are anyway, based on our experience this morning. So that's great. Can we just talk a little bit about some of these labels here and some of your favorites maybe, as we're in this amazing room?
This is actually a very special place for us. It's a bit of a museum really, and this is where we're trying to condensate all the heritage of the brand. In the late 19th century and early 20th century, and that's obviously extensive to most sherry houses around, we used to have hundreds of customers around the world, and every single customer had its own label, right? So we had a room at the time which contained, these batches and these editions of printouts of the special labels for each specific customer. We kept that actually when we bought Valdespino back in '99. We decided to bring all this collection of labels into this place and reset and replicate somehow that room, that original room here. And as you can see here, the wonderful pieces of art, I mean, rather than labels. The designs are just stunning. And you were rightly saying earlier on that many of them actually been the inspiration to develop the labels that we're actually using today. Right. I mean, we can see there some Manzanilla Deliciosa, the famous and iconic medium dry Amontillado Contrabandista. There's El Candado around. A good bunch of labels are actually in use today, and they've been somehow replicated and they're still in use.
Well, fantastic. There's a whole treasure trove there to go through. That's great. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Now, I guess it's become apparent there are many, many surprises and gems to be found within this modern, almost industrial complex. But perhaps none more surprising than the incredible equestrian collection that lives just around the corner from some of the fermentation vats. Well, that concludes the second part of our visit with Valdespino. Join me for part 3, where we will get down to the very serious business of tasting the wines that we've experienced in the previous 2 episodes, and also looking a little bit to the future and to the markets that Valdespino and Grupo José Estevez are operating within. Until then, please do like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this program, and I will see you in part 3 in a few weeks. Salud y nos vemos.